Hey, what's up? It's Rob Judge, and Bobby Rio and I are here with another video. Today we want to talk about humor, and this video is not going to be so much about how to become funnier, or we're not going to tell any jokes on this video, but what we are going to explain is what humor does and how it relates to subtext. Because so much of what I learned when I was, when I moved to Manhattan, I started going on a lot of dates, was that I started realizing that what you say has one level of meaning, but underneath that level there's a subtext. And I'm sure you've seen this in as you deal with people too, is that so much of what the impression people get of you is based on the subtext of what you're saying. And to give a quick example of that, in one of our previous videos we were discussing the idea that if you sort of like make a joke or sort of playfully talk about a topic like dating disasters, and a girl starts telling a story about a guy who maybe was a little needy on a date, or he did something that really conveyed way too much interest way too early on. Obviously he wasn't very he obviously shows the guy wasn't socially savvy. If you can kind of make a joke about that, or you can kind of laugh about that with the girl and have a sort of like that private moment, that inside joke about the fact that you both understand, because the whole thing is when you laugh at something, you sort of show like ownership of it, you show authority over it, that like it's the humor in it is that you know that it's inappropriate. Whereas most guys don't get that. Most guys just go on dates and they don't think about the subtext of like what they're saying, what their humor conveys, because, and not to be too gross or lewd or disgusting, but you remember back when I was in college, I remember it was really popular, it was kind of weird thing that guys would tell each other, but like jokes, like dead baby jokes, right? So a dead baby joke to like one of your buddies in the locker room, I mean, a lot of the times it comes off funny because it's like you and your friend, but the subtext of that is that like how, because a lot of times when you talk to guys, you want to put on that like muchacho sort of masculine persona, and the whole idea of the dead baby joke is that like you're so masculine, you're so just calloused that like the idea of like a dead baby is funny. And when you're just amongst the guys, like a lot of the times guys will find that sort of humor funny. But the thing is that when you're interacting with a female, if you told a girl a dead baby joke, it would go over horribly, and trust me, because I may or may not have fallen victim to that. And the reason is because what are you conveying to her? You're conveying to her that you're very calloused, you're not sensitive at all, that like the idea of like a dead baby is funny to you. So obviously like it's not going to convey the right subtext. I mean,
yeah, subtext is extremely important, like Rob is saying, and it can go a lot of different ways. It could be the guy who, and unfortunately he was this guy a few years back, that isn't calibrated enough to know that a dead baby joke isn't going to go over well with a woman, and the subtext there is horrible. But it could also be something as simple as self-deprecating humor, right? Self-deprecating humor can be amazing if the subtext, right, is right. And you may or may not have heard Rob or I, we talk about this idea of cool vulnerability, right? And that's the idea that when you're telling a self-deprecating thing, there should be an underlying like cool vulnerability that's being displayed. That way the woman laughs at the joke, but she also kind of feels like, I'm getting to know him, he's kind of cool. A lot of guys though, and myself, I was like so guilty of this with self-deprecating humor, is that I just wanted the laughter. I was addicted to the laughter, and I would just do anything to get the laughter. And I would start like, if she was laughing, I would just deprecate myself. Like it was like a race to the bottom just to keep the vibe fun. And nothing I was saying was like making her go, oh, this is kind of an attractive guy. Everything I was saying was getting her laughing, and this is like the old thing you might have heard in like elementary school. Is she laughing with you, or is she laughing at you? Well, she was laughing at me, and I didn't know because I was just naive. You want to get her laughing with you, and as Rob said, the perfect example he said is when you have something like laughing at guys who stalk women or get clingy, right? Because that kind of humor, it's got two levels. It's funny to tell a joke about how your friend bought a girl flowers the day after he hooked up with her, and he was like acting like he was going to propose to her, and you can both kind of laugh about that. That's one level. But on the other level, you're also saying, I'm not that kind of guy. I get that that's creepy, so you don't have to worry about it with me. So that's this idea of multi-leveling your humor, and I think that's really important because I don't think most people understand that. And it's something that Rob and I we first explored a lot of in our program Magnetic Messaging, is text messaging. It's like there's the text you send and then there's the subtext, right? And a lot of guys, it took a while for them to understand, like, if you're shooting at a certain text, on the surface it may be innocent, but on the subtext might be like, this guy's pretty desperate, or this guy's coming across too strong, too soon, too this, too that. So you want to really think that way with your humor as well.
You know, I could not agree more. And that's the thing. I mean, humor, it's just, it's tough because a lot of guys think, oh, okay, just to be funny, I just need to get a girl laughing. If she's laughing, things are going great. And I had dates where I had girls laughing their ass off, and then the end of the day came, and it was like, oh, you know, I never heard from her again. And the reason is because what is your humor saying about you? Because humor can be an incredibly, incredibly powerful tool if it's used in the right way, when you're using it with the right subtext. And that's why, you know, Bobby Rio and I created this Make Her Horny with Humor course, because the course, I mean, again, it's not like Bobby Rio and I, you know, Bobby and I are really comedians. We're not like, you know, going to stand up. Yeah, I mean, I don't consider myself an incredibly funny person, but the first thing you have to understand is that the bar for social humor, like humor on dates, humor when you're talking to girls, humor even when you meet a girl for the first time, the bar is set very, very, very low. It's not like you're up on stage. It's not like this is like, you know, Showtime at the Apollo. So that's the first thing you need to understand. Even if you don't think you're an incredibly funny person, you don't have to be. Obviously, we're not. So that's no, you know, lesson number one about, you know, Make Her Horny with Humor is that you don't have to be incredibly funny. And lesson number two is that there's a big difference between humor and attractive humor. And attractive humor contains the right subtext. There are just certain things that girls find funny because they're women and because they've had certain experiences that as guys we don't totally understand, but like when we can tap into that, it conveys so much awesome subtext. It conveys so much value. It just makes you come off so much more attractive than when you're just trying to be a clown and just trying to entertain her and just trying to getting her laughing. Because that is not an effective strategy.
Yes, and what Rob also we wanted to mention with Make Her Horny with Humor is that the subtext is important, the attractive humor style is important, but one thing that guys often miss, right, is that there's also like there's also an end game. And because there's an end game, it means there's points in the way to the end game. The end game obviously the course is called Make Her Horny with Humor. So the end game is getting her back, sleeping with her, making her your girlfriend, falling in love with her, whatever you want to do after you sleep with her, that's up to you. But the end game of this thing is, okay, I'm talking to this girl, how can I progress it to a sexual relationship? And what we figured out was that there's actually phases, because the kind of humor you use when you're talking to a girl that you're just meeting and it's been 5 minutes and she doesn't really know you, is a little different than you're using when you're back at her place. Because when you're back at her place, now you've got to move into, let's say, a physical humor. A humor that's going to allow more like, and I'm not going to do demonstrations on him, but it's going to allow more like touching, more flirting than when you're first talking to her. There's also the connection humor, where at some point, you know, she's got to go, I kind of feel like I know this guy, I get him. So a lot of guys, like, if you stay in the one type of humor too long, she never gets that moment of going, I get this guy. He's not just some clown that is making these funny jokes. I also get him, you know. So there's a lot of other things that we incorporated into it, and it's 5 phases. We walk you through each phase of humor, and within each phase, we also tell you how to incorporate, as Rob said, the most important thing, which is the subtext, because the subtext is what keeps generating that snowballing attraction that makes her horny with humor. So check out the link below and let us know what you think about this video. If you have any other questions about humor, we'd love to hear them.